Okay, well, let's take the next listener phone call. Hello, this is Science Fantastic. You're on the air. Any comments or questions?
My name is Neil Baker. I'm in Kennewick, Washington. I listen to KTCR. And I'm one of those people, actually I might be one of those kooks that doesn't think we went to the moon. I don't think I'm a kook. I think I've got good reason to think we didn't go to the moon. And they basically boil down to two reasons. One is that the spacesuits that the astronauts are in are impossible, and the cooling system is preposterous. The nickel porous plate ice sublimators that they allegedly use to cool themselves, you can't find any information on them. We've been allegedly using them for 50 years. There's nothing in the textbook about them. There's hardly anything on the internet about them, and you've never seen a demonstration of one in operation, which could easily happen in a high vacuum chamber that NASA allegedly has. The suits are impossible because those kinds of suits with the flexible membrane would be impossible to operate in a high vacuum, and that could be proven very easily on Earth also with the use of high vacuum chamber, which still isn't used either. So I think the moon landings are fake. I think the Gemini spacewalks are fake. I think the International Space Station is fake, and I think the alleged spacewalks at the Hubble Space Telescope are fake, which I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, well, you ask a mouthful, so let's try to break it down one by one. First of all, there is that famous videotape that says that, the moon program was a fake from start to finish, and they list many examples. The main examples are not actually the ones you mentioned, but let me tackle all of them. The first main criticism about our going to the moon is the flag. The moon has no air. There's no wind on the moon. We learned that in elementary school. But there are our astronauts saluting a waving flag. You've all seen that picture. It's on many a website. Our astronauts saluting a fluttering American flag. Say the critics, obviously a fake, because flags do not flutter on the moon because there's no wind on the moon. Another thing they say is, look at the shadows. If you look at the shadows, you see not one but two. And the shadows seem to be at different angles. Now, how can you get two sets of shadows unless it's a Hollywood movie set? A Hollywood movie set. Then you have a bunch of lights, and of course the camera crew don't keep track of the shadows, and one of them slipped out, and there it is, our astronauts on the moon with two sets of shadows, obviously Hollywood shadows, nothing to do with a real moonwalk.
There was a story I ran yesterday about the Apollo photographs, and more people are getting onto this. It was so, and you were really one of the very first people to do this, and when I say to all of you listening, do this, Jay brought the story forward that it was a Stanley Kubrick production. There was too much riding on this whole thing, the Van Allen radiation belts and all the rest of it. It was all shot on the back lot on an enormous sound stage. Somewhere. Perhaps they had built one in Palmdale or Lancaster, I heard. I don't know where it was, but this was all staged, and that's why the video was so crappy in many cases, especially when the lunar module lifted off. It just looked like third-rate video, and they did that on purpose to obscure the fact that it was a model.
There's you actually posted an article by a Ukrainian physicist, Oleg Olenek.
Yes.
And he did 3D parallax viewing of the Apollo photographs.
Story. Wonderful story. That is the lock. That is irrefutable science. That's hard science.
It's in the casket. It's buried. It's whatever cliches you want to come up with, the smoking gun. But anyway, folks, what he did, and just type in Oleg Olenek, and Jeff has the article up at his archives, and is that he took two photographs that were slightly apart from each other and then combined them. And what you do is you create parallax so you can look at the backgrounds. And when you jiggle the two separated photographs, say separated by a meter or so, the background should not move because it's far away, right? You understand what I mean? The background will not move, the foreground will. If the background moves, that means it's a lot closer to the foreground than we think, and that's exactly what happened. And Dr. Olenek concluded that the astronauts were standing in front of a screen that was about 30 meters behind them. Exactly what I've been saying. it slipped by, I think.
Yeah,
and I think it's an important story.
It's a very one. I'm going to put it back up. There's so many stories that are important that I just wish.
What's interesting about this whole Stanley Kubrick thing is, one, his daughter is finally coming out, and she was estranged from Stanley. She's actually coming out to be quite a conspiracy theorist, which is interesting. Like daughter, like father, I guess.
Huh.
And another thing is the hottest screenplay in Hollywood right now is called 1969: A Space Odyssey, which is about the travails of Stanley going through faking the moon landings. And so this thing is now, I think, gone beyond, if we can prove, and I think we can now, and I will in Kubrick's Odyssey 3, my new film, if we can prove that this was all fake, then they've been faking this stuff since at least the late 60s. And so this kind of just changes everything about all of reality since then. How many things have been faked since then? You're looking at Sandy Hook, or looking at the Boston bombings, which are recent events.
Right.
But maybe we ought to start going back and looking at a whole lot of other things.
No arguments here.
Yeah.
We're really looking at something now. I guess you could say this, no pun intended, the sky's the limit.
And you know this, for years, Neil Armstrong refused to be interviewed. I found that to be one of the strangest things of anything. You would think that the first man on the moon, the national hero that he is, would have talked to everyone about the experience, about the wonder. That didn't happen.
The role model was Lindbergh. And Lindbergh became a very public person and was very much out there with his political views and all that. You'd think that Neil would have at least wanted to be a role model for the next generation. Instead, he became essentially a recluse, a hermit. And on every anniversary, they would wind him up and trot him out in public. The most interesting one was during the Clinton years at the White House on the 25th anniversary, Or do you remember what Armstrong said, the most stunning thing that an astronaut could say, and I think in this milieu get away with it?
Give us the quote.
Well, he said two things. At the start of his speech, he compared himself and the other astronauts to birds, to parrots. And he then made a joke and he said, and parrots don't fly very well. Well, what else do parrots do, George?
They repeat what they're
they
told.
are told.
Plant his foot on the surface of the moon has been a pioneer in many ways. And Mr. Armstrong, in asking you to come to the podium, may I say that millions of Americans have admired you not only for your achievement, but for the quiet dignity with which you have conducted yourself and represented not only our country, but humankind. Ladies and gentlemen, Neil Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, Mr. President, members of Congress, fellow astronauts, ladies and gentlemen. Wilbur Wright once noted that the only bird that could talk was the parrot, and he didn't fly very well. So I'll be brief. This week, America has been recalling the Apollo program and reliving the memories of those times in which so many of us here, colleagues here in the first rows, were immersed. Our old astrogeology mentor, Gene Shoemaker, even called in one of his comets to mark the occasion with spectacular Jovian fireworks. And reminding us once again of the power and consequence of celestial extracurricular activities. Many Americans were part of Apollo, about 1 or 2 in each 1,000 citizens, all across the country. They were asked by their country to do the impossible, to envisage, to design, and to build a method of breaking the bonds of Earth's gravity, and then sally forth and visit another heavenly body. The principal elements, leaving Earth, navigating in space, and descending to a planet unencumbered with runways and traffic controls, would include the major requirements necessary for a spacefaring people. Today, a space shuttle flies overhead with an international crew. A number of countries have international space programs. During the space age, we have increased the knowledge of our universe 1,000-fold. Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. To you we say, we have only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. There are places to go beyond belief. Those challenges are yours. In many fields, not the least of which is space, because there lies human destiny.
Eager, idealistic faces, riveted on the first man on the moon, talking to them, and he looked at them and he said, "There are wonders beyond belief. There are truths to be revealed if one can remove truth's protective layers." Now, where in the world does one get the idea the truth has to have protection to be found out?